Morning, Antioch. Today is Sunday, July 12th, 2020. Today's lesson is called Wisdom That Amazes. Devotional reading is Leviticus chapter 12, verses 1 through 8. Numbers chapter 3, 11 through 13. Background scripture is Ecclesiastes chapter 3, 1 through 15. Luke, 2nd chapter, 39 through 52. And our printed passage is Ecclesiastes 3 and 1 and 7b, and then Luke chapter 2, 39 through 52. Amen? Anybody want to start us off with a brief word of prayer?
Father God, we thank you once again for allowing us to see another day. Lord, we thank you for your grace and your mercy. Thank you, Lord, for watching over us as we slumber and sleep. Lord, as we go through this lesson, Lord, just penetrate our heart, Lord. Let us not keep it to ourselves, but share it with others. So, Father, again, we just thank you. And we want to give you glory, honor, and praise for this day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. As we start off, would anybody like to read the printed passage? It's in red on the sheets.
There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be silent, a time to speak. When Joseph and Mary had done everything required by the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee to their own town of Nazareth. And the child grew and became strong. He was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was on him. Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the festival according to the custom. After the festival was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. Thinking he was in their company, they traveled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." "Why were you searching for me?" he asked. "Didn't you know I had to be in my father's house?" But they did not understand what he was saying to them. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man.
Amen. Amen. We start off in Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, the first verse. It says, "There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens." And just to give a little background on the book was written by King Solomon. We can see that in chapter 1 and 1. And if you know about his wisdom, he was still sharing wisdom. And he felt that it was his responsibility, as we know, to keep the people together in wisdom. That's what he asked for from the Lord. He didn't ask for wealth. He didn't ask for his personal benefit. He asked for the ability to be wise for the people. And Solomon did this through wise counsel. He starts this chapter letting you know that there is a process, a time for everything that happens. And we all have that same process. We didn't come out of the womb at 50. We came out of the womb as a child, a baby, and we grew. There was a time and a process for us, and the Lord has a divine time for all of us. It speaks to the seasons and the facets of life. Please also notice that he speaks of a time, and if you read Ecclesiastes chapter 3, you'll see he keeps saying a time. And these times are not controlled by us. They aren't ours to control. We don't control them. But by the Lord's will. The seasons don't change because of us. The sun doesn't set because of us. The moon doesn't come up because of us. And we don't come to being because of he goes down to 7b and it says, a time to be silent and a time to speak. And I probably could have went on for at least 3 hours about this verse. Because, you know, I used to be told when I was little, let that food stop your mouth, because my mouth was in something it wasn't supposed to be in. There was a time to be silent, and then there was a time to speak. That was not my time to speak, but it sure was my time to be silent. So this speaks to wisdom, because that discretion that we have been talking about, you need it. And it is the foundation of wisdom. Don't forget, about 3 weeks ago, we kept talking about discretion. Well, that silent time, that's part of that discretion. Because you don't want to go off kilter when you can take some time, soak it in, and then adjust to it and ask for some help from the Lord. And wisdom needs that silent moment so that you can hear from the Lord, and then the time to speak, not when you hear from you, but after you hear from the Lord, because we're going to say the wrong thing. We're going to do the wrong thing. So that's why we need that discretion, that time to be silent. Let the Lord come upon you and tell you what to say. So then it speaks on mourning and grief have caused us to be silent, which it has. Mourning and grief has caused us to be silent. And that may not be a good time to speak out, because you may lash out. You know, you be in anger. Your feelings are hurt. Your emotions are on your surface. And what do? You blow up. You don't want to blow up. So that's the time to, hey, let me take this in. Anybody want to read Proverbs 17 and 28?
Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongue.
Uh-oh, even fools, and we described fools 3 weeks back, and even they know. Shut your mouth. Be quiet. Let this thing happen. And then it says, even fools are thought wise. So sometimes being quiet makes people think you're wise too. This may not be your time to intercede in a conversation or to act out. Just be silent. These are times and circumstances where silence is the best policy. And when you have nothing to say, then that is a good time. Don't be one of those people that just got to have something to say all the time. How about when you assume to answer a question that has not been asked yet? Y'all ever watch Family Feud when Steve Harvey going through the question and he don't finish and they answer and it be the completely wrong thing? That's your aunt. Anybody want to read Proverbs 18:13?
To answer before listening, this is folly and shame.
Didn't we say folly was the opposite of wisdom? Ain't she the enemy of... Well, this is folly. So, still a time to be silent. And then there is a time to speak. If you look at Galatians 2:11 and 13, and I picked this one out because Paul had to speak up on a situation that dealt with treat people properly. We need to speak up on times to deal with treat people properly. So anybody want to read Galatians 2:11 through 13?
When Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned. For before certain men came from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles. But when they arrived, he began to draw back and separate himself from the Gentiles because he was afraid of those who belonged to the circumcision group. The other Jews joined him in his hypocrisy, so that their hypocrisy, even Barnabas, was led astray.
See, this situation not only was hypocrisy, but it led the person astray. And Paul had to say, hey, this is the time I need to speak up so it will benefit. And his wisdom was saying, hey, you know you're not supposed to do that. There is no difference between that Gentile and that Jew. Why would you be here with them when they're here the whole time and then the big wigs show up and you can only hang out with the big wigs? See, that led you astray. And Paul speaks out to him about that. So we got times we're supposed to speak out. You notice in the Old Testament it kept saying, the prophets kept speaking about the injustice done to the Israelites. The scales were wrong. They were being treated wrongly. Hey, even when they were worshiping, they were doing it wrong. Those are times to speak up. We speak up on the wrong stuff. So we need that moment of wisdom to truly gather what the Lord has given us to say and do.
You know, sometimes we allow the world to dictate
Yes.
when we speak and when we don't speak. Because what's going on today, you know, we hear the world saying, you know, if you say something, what does they say? Snitches get stitches. But then we hear, you know, the world, you know, or the other people are saying, if you see something, you got to say something, because you're just as guilty as the person that's committing that wrong. If you see something, you just stand back and say nothing and do nothing.
You can't conform to the world. And we're supposed to speak up for injustice, period. As followers of Christ, we're supposed to speak up at any unjust time. When any other person is being treated unfairly, we have to speak up. Who else is going to speak up for them? Because the world is like, keep doing it. We don't mind, but God is like, that's my child. I'm the one that went to the cross for them. And I gave you ability to speak up for them and do for them. And you'll see he always gives us that ability to do and say. But we can't go do it out of anger. So that's when we have to back up and say, okay, Lord, how should I do this? Give me that wisdom. Let me have some discretion. Not to walk up there because I think I'm the man and I can do this and that. But actually walk up there knowing that you're the servant of the Lord and let him be in control of what you do. So we have to do that. And it's hard. This ain't no walk in the park, so it is hard. But if you get a chance, read that whole chapter, because at a time, you'll be stuck in them at times, because there's a lot of good stuff in it. So in Luke chapter 2, we start speaking, and it says, when Joseph and Mary had done everything required by the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee to their own town of Nazareth. Now, remember, this wasn't immediate. They went and came back. This wasn't immediate. They waited on the wise men, and then Joseph also took Mary and Jesus into Egypt during the time. The things that they had to do were also in the preparation of Mary, which she had to be cleansed from purification for 40 days. Jesus had to be circumcised. So it wasn't an immediate return. There was work that still had to be done. If anybody want to read Luke 22 and 23.
When the time came for the purification rites required by the law of Moses, Joseph and Mary took him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord, as it is written in the law of the Lord. Every firstborn male is to be consecrated to the Lord.
So they was being obedient in their action. And we're going to talk about obedience with the parents, and then we'll move into the child. And then Jesus' own ceremony, since he was a boy, since he had his own ceremony being a boy, a young man. Anybody want to read Luke 2 and 21?
On the 8th day, when it was time to circumcise the child, he was named Jesus, the name the angel had given him before he was conceived.
See, Jesus was even in the traditions of being obedient at birth. Jesus was circumcised, and what the verse really says is that Jesus was always obedient to God. Please don't forget the other things that happened. Now, don't forget the killing of the innocent when Herod was out and all of that. Please don't forget that, because that was bad. But all of these things happened in this time frame. And the child grew and became strong, and he was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was on him. Now, I like this verse, but I like it better in King James, just to let you know. If you notice in this verse that Jesus grew like any other child, but Luke expresses his spiritual growth first. He expresses that first. And the King James Version really says it better than the NIV. Anybody want to read that? Luke 2 and 40.
And the child grew and waxed strong in spirit, filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him.
See, it spoke to the fact that he grew, which we all gonna do. But look at how deliberately Luke speaks on his spirit. He didn't say he got buffed, he got tall. He said his spirit waxed strong in the spirit. See, wax emphasizes becoming larger and stronger in the spirit. He was filled with wisdom. And that takes you back a few weeks ago. We go back to Proverbs 1 and 7. Anybody want to read that?
The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So
you know Jesus was in the Word. He revered God. He knew who God was. And he was seeking him out. And his parents had to be feeding him something. He wasn't just saying, okay, they don't know God, because they was obedient. But he was still on his own too. Jesus was seeking him out. He had a different relationship. And when Luke describes that waxed and strong in the spirit, he is talking about, man, this dude was a beast. He was not just your normal child. He had a special relationship with the Lord, and he knew it. So what did he do? He kept seeking it out. He was looking for that treasure. So he knew who his father is, and we'll speak to that. But he shows that with his growth. So Jesus was seeking in that treasure. Remember that treasure we talked about? You know, seek it out diligently. Don't give up. Dig for it. Well, Jesus was seeking it out and putting in the time to find the treasures of the Lord. See, it takes some time to find the gifts of the Lord. You don't just pick up the Bible and say, oop, I read it all, here you go. You might pick up a verse and be on it for 2 weeks. So Jesus was putting in the time, and he was young. He was young, so parents, don't believe your child can't pick up the Lord. Don't be fooled with that. Your child can get the Lord if they want the Lord, but you got to see what Mary and Joseph did in this situation to even make sure that their child could keep them with the Lord. Amen. Since Jesus was seeking the Lord and that was established with his wisdom, then why would you not expect goodness and the favor of the Lord to be upon him? That's what you would expect. God, I call upon you. God, I turn to you. God, I ask for this. I am seeking you out, Lord. Guess what? If you're looking for him, he ain't hard to find. You know, I hear people say, I found God. He wasn't lost. You was lost. But if you call out to him, he'll say, I've been here the whole time just waiting for you. I've been here. You haven't been here. So he was doing this. He was like, I need to find out more and absorb more. And although he had a special gift and he was God's son, he still showed us the diligence and the work that he put in to get that relationship to be strong, to have that wisdom. He didn't just say, no, I don't know what they're reading about. No, he took some time. He knew how to act. He was wise as a child because he knew who to call on. And we'll see that later on. So in verse 41 it says, every year Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. Uh-oh, here come these parents now. These good parents. Mary and Joseph were obedient. And if you want your child to be obedient, then maybe you need to show them obedience. See, you can't say, go to Sunday school, go to church, go to vacation Bible school. Sometimes you got to put that hand out like this and say, come on, we going to church. Amen. We going to Sunday school. We going to vacation Bible school. Sometimes you need to sit down and show them how you read the word so they can know to sit down and read the word. And Mary and Joseph is doing that. Where are we going to the festival? We supposed to go here. Who coming with us? Our son. So you can see what we supposed to do. If you want a child to act right in church, got to show them. Got to show them. And they wanted Jesus to know these things. So guess what? Here they go. So you had some obedient parents, which went to their child. So he was planned for by the Lord to go to this couple because he knew the type of people that they were. Mary wasn't no just walk in the park, didn't believe type of woman. She believed. She believed, and he was with somebody that believed. That's when it really worked for you. If parents believe, it's easy for you to believe. If they say, well, you know, I only go to Sunday service once a year, and I'll see you next year. Well, that kid is probably going to say, yes, I go to Sunday service once a year, and I'll see y'all next year. That's it. But if you know the Lord is part of your daily routine, you'll go to him every day. You won't grow enough if you go to him one time a year. It ain't going to happen, because in them other times during the year, you being tested. You falling apart because you don't know who he is. So that wisdom, that obedience that they even had was awesome.
Brother teacher, can I add to what
Go
you
ahead,
said
go
there about the parents and the child? Just think about growing up, and it takes being consistent with it
Yes.
too. Because there are some times, even as a child, even though I see my parents going to church, they're faithful, there are times like, man, I ain't feeling this. I mean, why I question it, why I got to do this, why I got to go. When I get of age, church ain't gonna be my thing. I had all these thoughts, but my parents were consistent. As long as you're under this roof, as long as you're in this house, this is what you're going to be doing. Period. This is what you're going to be doing. So it takes a parent being consistent.
Yes,
on
they have to
that thing.
They have to be.
There's one time growing up, I hid one of my shoes to keep my mom made me wear some big work boots. And I know deep down inside she knew I hid that shoe. But I knew not to go get that shoe.
Yeah, because she didn't.
So I went on to church and got laughed at and talked about and stuff like that. But see, that's the kind of household you have to grow up in.
Yes.
They went, and if you lived under her roof, you was going.
Yep.
Amen.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's how it was. I know it was easy for me. 6:30, be at the door. You driving the van with me. You helping people get on the van. Why ain't anybody else going, Grandma? Oh, wrong question. Be ready. But when you look at it, it helped you. You stayed true to it. You got into a pattern. You learned what obedience was. You learned to say, you know what, I'm supposed to go to church for myself too. Because now Mama and Daddy ain't walking you to church. You know to go. So you got to find out who God was, and you started your own personal relationship with the Lord.
And you touched on something important too. You were involved in doing things in the church. You weren't just coming and just sitting. They were using you.
No.
And that's what we, should practice with our children growing up in the church. Get them involved. Get them hands-on.
Get them hands-on, yeah. Hey, kids need something to do, and we need to fill them up with something to do.
Yeah.
And if it's about God, you really filling them up with a whole lot to do. And it'll be good to them even in their days later on. They're going to be mad at you right now, but trust me.
Rain up.
When they get a little older and that wisdom settled in them, they'll be like, I needed that.
Yes.
I think about the beatings I got as a kid, and I'd be laughing. I'd be like, boy, I needed that. I got away with this one. But honestly, I needed it.
Yes.
And I'm thankful for them now. I wasn't thankful then. I was mad then. But I wasn't wise enough to know what they were doing for me. So we all need them. So anybody want to read Luke 2 and 21? Did I go backwards? I think I did, yeah.
You're at Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy, I'm sorry, 16:16.
3 times a year, all your men must appear before the Lord your God at the place he will choose. At the festival of unleavened bread, the festival of weeks, and the festival of tabernacles. No one should appear before the Lord empty-handed.
And the awesome thing about this verse, one, is Joseph knows that he has to do this. And Jesus is going along with Mary, and Mary didn't actually have to go. But if you look in the book of Acts, Jesus was telling him, hold on. I'll be there for the festival as a grown man. So when he was trained as that youth, it carried on
Yes.
to his old age. He was still respecting and attending the Lord's holy festivals. And he was taught that as a child. So that verse messes with me, because every time I think about it, you're like, train your kid and they'll do it. But if you don't take the time to train them, how can you expect them to do it? And that's wisdom in that verse alone by itself. If I want you to do something, I better show you how to do it. If I say, well, son, I want you to grow up and take over my mechanic shop for me, and I let you play and you never learn anything about my shop, how do they take it over?